And my uncle said, in his exact words, they ring in my ears, he said, "If you don't straighten up and act like a man, we'll send you back to the house with the girls."
Wow, there it is.
You're a sissy if you don't go with us.
Right.
When I was on the farm, at that age, I actually didn't belong to farm kid groups, but my brother did. And there were a lot of other kinds of groups like that that prepared you to be a farmer. One of the most common projects is raising like a heifer or a pig or a steer or something for a show. And then they go to the state fair and they show these animals and they win ribbons. You see these kids spend so much time with these animals and really get attached to them almost like pets. And then comes the time when they have to part ways with that animal. They have to go to slaughter, they have to go to auction. And often it's very traumatic for these kids. Even though you've been close to this animal, you've groomed it and maybe slept with it for weeks, it has to go to market.
This is how they say it. When you get your first animal, they tell you, you always cry on your first animal, but you get used to it. You get used to it. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I mean, yeah, you get used to it, okay. You get used to the fact that something that you get attached to for months is taken from you and killed. I mean, how are you supposed to get used to that? And I couldn't get used to it.
Misty Vina is a high school student from San Jose, California, who went through this program only once, with a steer she named Ferdinand.
I had him for 10 months, and it was every day I was out there. It would have been easier if we'd had a plan for him to be slaughtered from the start, but he wasn't supposed to be, so it came like out of nowhere on me. I was out there, I'd get up at 5 o'clock or 5:30 every morning, be out at school 2 hours before it started, and I'd go out there, I'd stay out there for a while in the morning, feed him and everything, and then I would be out there at lunch most of the time, and then I had 2 periods of agriculture where I was usually out there before then anyways, and I'd stay after school until 4:30 every day after school with him. At first I thought, oh, what am I doing with a cow? This is so stupid, right? It was a steer, and it's like, I thought, it was going to be easy, and he turned into, he seriously, I always told everybody, he's like a big puppy. I would call him, and he would come over to me, and he'd put his nose in his halter for me, and it's like when I went to visit him while they had him at the fair, and I went over there, and I called his name, and his little ear turned up, and he turned around to me and started mooing, and I started crying, and everyone was like, oh, there she goes again, and I'm like, for people to say that they don't have emotion, they don't know that you're there, it's not true.
The idea of discovery and proof of an internal emotional event is harder to prove, harder to control, and harder to justify in what sense that should be taken on board by anybody and for what reason.
Gisella Kaplan is a professor of animal behavior at Australia's University of New England.
I'm absolutely convinced that across the animal world, including our farm animals, certainly we know it of our pets. We know when they cry, we know when they're sad, we know when they have grief as pet owners. But that the same may apply even to animals that for centuries have been domesticated. But I have no doubt that those factors exist very strongly.
The changes that have transpired in our understanding, perception, and empathy for farm animals were not ones that occurred overnight, nor is it easy to bookmark the points in history at which they have taken place.
I think we're looking at a period of at least 300 years of change, starting about 1700, when people first began to realize that humans and the other species are built on the same anatomical template.
David Frasier is a professor of animal welfare at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada.
We're not only built on the same anatomical template, but we share a common ancestry as well. Through the work of people like Jane Goodall, we have come to see animals, even in scientific study, not just as data points, helping to establish some kind of average or norm for the species, but more as persons with individual life histories and their own emotional and intellectual life. So we've seen a gradual change over 3 centuries, a rapid change over the last few decades. And for the farm animals, this means that ways of raising animals that seemed perfectly modern and progressive even 10 or 20 years ago are becoming increasingly out of step with modern values.
In terms of the complex emotions possessed by farm animals, a popular analogy can easily be applied. We may not be able to define it, but we certainly know it when we see it. Everyday researchers are breaking new ground and allowing us solid glimpses into the emotional makeup of these animals. In June of 2004, researchers at Babraham Institute, part of England's Cambridge University, announced they had discovered some profound qualities possessed by sheep. Qualities which will doubtless shed new light on our perception of the emotional and intellectual capacities of these animals. Individual sheep, it seems, can recognize up to 50 other sheep by facial features alone, and remember each of their faces after 2 years of separation. This recognition is based on facial characteristics that may differ by as little as 5%. It was also established that sheep have an overwhelmingly favorable response to humans that smile or laugh, as opposed to humans that frown or scowl. In the words of chief researcher, neuroscientist Dr. Keith Kendrik, this does open up the possibility that they have much richer emotional lives than we would give them credit for. Dr. Kendrik and his team believe these findings may offer valuable insights into human conditions like autism and schizophrenia.